With Europe on edge due to the ongoing conflict in Ukraine, Poland is taking swift action to double down on its military preparedness. This is a nation with a history of being invaded by its neighbors and betrayed by its allies, and the recent Russian invasion of Ukraine has served as a chilling reminder of the danger it faces. The Poles have learned time and again throughout their history that relying on allies is not enough and are taking matters into their own hands. With rising tensions in Europe, Poland's urgency to strengthen its military sends a clear message. It will not become a victim of its history again. But is Poland right to be so distrustful of its allies? Let us begin with the partition of Poland, a defining moment in Polish history and a trauma that still reverberates through the country's collective memory today. In the late 18th century, the once powerful Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth had weakened to the point where it was vulnerable to foreign powers, particularly its neighbors, Russia, Prussia, and Austria. These three powers formed an alliance and conspired to divide Poland among themselves, with each taking a slice of the pie. In the first partition of 1772, Russia, Prussia, and Austria each took a portion of Polish territory, with Russia taking the largest share, gaining control of areas in the east and southeast, including the cities of Kiev and Minsk. Prussia took land in the west, including parts of what is now modern-day Western Poland, and the city of Danzig, now Gdansk, while Austria took a section in the south. The second partition of Poland occurred in 1793, with the same three powers again taking part. This time, Russia took the largest share, including the cities of Vilnius and Grodno, while Prussia took areas in the west, including Warsaw and Krakow. Austria gained territory in the south. The third and final partition of Poland took place in 1795, with Russia taking the largest share once again. This time, Russia acquired almost half of the remaining Polish territory, including the cities of Warsaw and Lublin. Prussia took a smaller section, including Poznan, while Austria only took a small section in the south. By the end of the partitions, Poland had completely disappeared from the map of Europe, with its territory divided among its neighbors. Russia had acquired the lion's share of the land, while Prussia and Austria had also gained significant territory. Despite having some allies who tried to help, Poland was ultimately left to face its fate alone. Even France, a long-standing ally of Poland, attempted to intervene and stop the partition, but to no avail. The combined forces of Russia, Prussia, and Austria were too powerful for France to take on, and the partition went ahead as planned. This betrayal by its allies would leave a deep scar on Poland's psyche. The betrayal of Poland's other ally, Great Britain, was particularly devastating. Rather than intervening to prevent the partition, it was rumored that Britain had actually agreed to it behind closed doors. The British saw an opportunity to gain access to Polish ports and markets, and were willing to sacrifice Poland's sovereignty for their own gain. The British ambassador to Russia, Sir James Harris, had given assurances to the Polish king, Stanislaw August Poniatowski, that Britain would not back the partition. But it was later revealed that he had secretly supported it. This act of treachery not only left Poland vulnerable and alone, but it also shattered the trust between Poland and its allies. The partition of Poland is a constant reminder to the Polish people that they cannot rely on the goodwill of their neighbors or allies to protect their interests. It is a reminder that Poland's fate can be decided by outside forces, and that it must be vigilant and self-reliant in order to survive. Even today, almost 250 years later, the memory of the partition of Poland is a powerful force in shaping Poland's foreign policy and national identity. The bitter lesson that Poland could not rely on other nations for its survival was tragically reinforced once again during the harrowing experience of World War II. The invasion of Poland by Nazi Germany in 1939 was a defining moment marked by betrayal and devastation. Poland had repeatedly warned its allies, Britain and France, of the growing threat from Nazi Germany, but the warnings were ignored. And as Germany annexed Austria and demanded the Sudetenland from Czechoslovakia, the Allies remained inactive, hoping to avoid another war. Polish intelligence reports had been warning of an imminent German invasion for months, but the Allies failed to take any significant action to deter the Nazis. On September 1, 1939, Germany launched a surprise attack on Poland with a massive invasion force of over 1.5 million soldiers, supported by tanks, planes, and artillery, using the devastating tactic of blitzkrieg. Poland pleaded for help from its allies during the Nazi invasion, but the response was a weak and feeble one. Despite the Polish-British Common Defence Pact, signed just weeks before, which promised aid, Britain was not prepared to provide substantial assistance. Their top priority was to avoid a two-front war with Germany and the Soviet Union, which meant avoiding provocation of the Soviets by intervening in Poland. The betrayal of Poland left its people alone to face a catastrophic fate at the hands of the Nazi invaders. France, which had a similar pact with Poland, called the Franco-Polish Military Alliance, did not provide much help either, as France's priority was to defend its own territory, and it did not want to commit its forces to Poland's defense. Britain and France declared war on Germany on September 3rd, and their initial response was a plan to execute a limited campaign in the West that was quickly defeated by Germany. This move did little to help the besieged Poles. Adding to Poland's misery, the Soviet Union, who had previously signed a non-aggression pact with Germany, invaded Poland from the east on September 17, 1939. This betrayal further divided and weakened Poland's already meager defenses. Poland's allies responded to the Soviet invasion with condemnation, but no military action. Poland was left to fight alone, and despite their bravery and determination, they were no match for the overwhelming force of the hammer and anvil of the German and Soviet armies. Within a few weeks, Warsaw had fallen, and Poland was again occupied. The horrors of Poland during World War II are difficult to overstate, resulting in enormous suffering and loss of life. It's estimated that around 6 million Poles, including 3 million Jews, were killed during the war, which amounted to around 20% of the country's population. In addition to the atrocities committed by the Nazis, including the establishment of ghettos and concentration camps, the Soviets also committed numerous atrocities against the Polish people. In 1940, the Soviet secret police executed around 22,000 Polish officers and other intelligentsia in the Katyn massacre. The Soviets also deported around 1.5 million Poles to Siberia and other parts of the Soviet Union, where many perished due to harsh conditions. The betrayal of Poland by its allies during World War II left a bitter taste in the mouths of the Polish people. They had trusted their allies, but those allies had failed them again. The story of Poland's betrayal by its allies did not, however, end at the lack of action at the outset of the war. As the war was drawing to a close, Poland found itself in a precarious position. Despite fighting valiantly against the Nazis, it had suffered enormous losses and was now at the mercy of its erstwhile allies, the United States and Britain. As the war was clearly drawing to a close with a resounding Allied victory, the leaders of the United States, Great Britain, and the Soviet Union met in February 1945 at the seaside town of Yalta on the Crimean Peninsula. At the Yalta Conference, the leaders of these three nations met to discuss the post-war order. The fate of Poland was on the agenda, and its representatives were present at the conference. However, it soon became apparent that Poland's fate had already been decided. President Franklin D. Roosevelt and Prime Minister Winston Churchill, eager to maintain good relationships with Soviet Premier Joseph Stalin, were willing to sacrifice Poland's sovereignty and independence. The outcome of the Yalta Conference was a disaster for Poland. The country was forced to give up swathes of its eastern territories to the Soviet Union, which had invaded it in 1939. In return, Poland was promised free and democratic elections, which would allow its people to choose their own government. But this promise was soon betrayed. The Soviet-backed Polish government that emerged after the war was anything but democratic, and Poland remained under Soviet dominion until 1989. The betrayal of Poland by its allies did not end with the division of its territory. When the United States launched the Marshall Plan, a program of aid and reconstruction for war-torn Europe, Poland was excluded. Stalin had vetoed Poland's participation, and Roosevelt and Churchill had acquiesced. As a result, Poland missed out on the opportunity to rebuild its shattered economy and society. In the end, Poland paid a heavy price for its alliance with the Western powers. Its sacrifices during the war went unacknowledged, and its hopes for a free and independent future were dashed. This betrayal of Poland remains a stain on the history of the Second World War, and a warning of the dangers of realpolitik and power politics. The Russian invasion of Ukraine in 2022 has brought Poland's precarious geopolitical position into sharp focus again, and the Poles are not taking any chances this time around. The country is keeping one eye on Russia while simultaneously keeping another eye on its allies. The nation is doubling down on its military preparedness, determined to avoid becoming a victim of its history once again. Despite being a member of NATO and the European Union, Poland has learned from its history not to overly rely on promises of protection. The country's past experiences of being invaded and betrayed have made it wary of foreign powers. And as tensions continue to rise in Europe, Poland is taking matters into its own hands. With a growing sense of militarism and the highest per capita military spending among NATO countries, Poland is sending a clear message to the world. It is ready to fiercely protect its future and sovereignty.